So I mentioned in my last video that I was not impressed with the X-E4 and the X-Pro3. This is my X-E3, which unlike the X-E4 has the rear command dial and it has the focus switch. Doesn't have a flip out screen, but I don't actually mind it too much. A camera I think Fuji should have made, or should make maybe next. So maybe I guess it'd more likely be some type of X-Pro4, but it's not even really the X-Pro because I feel like it's the spiritual successor to what came before this, which was the X-E2 and X-E2S, and obviously the X-E1. But they were similar sized, you know, rangefinder style Fuji, but with a EVF, no hybrid finder. And I think those would be more popular. If you watch YouTube videos of like these reviewers shooting the X-Pro3, I swear every single time you see them in the video and they have the camera up to themselves, the little finder window is shut, meaning they're using it in EVF mode. I think it's probably a very small minority who actually uses the hybrid finder most of the time, if at all. So I think that technology is kind of a negative contributor to the cost of that camera, and people don't really use it, and it's just sort of a wasted feature. What's interesting is the screen on the X-Pro3 was also a terrible design with the way it flips down. It's hidden. I think majority of people hate it. There's a few random people who like it, but generally I think that was a mistake. And I think they could make a camera that would sell really well and could be something near the top of the range that people love. And it would be sort of like I said, a successor to the X-E, because this is when they switched. The X-E2 and X-E2S were the same as the X-E1, where they were similar size to the X-Pro1, but I don't have any of these cameras obviously to show you anymore. They were similar. They're a little bit smaller, but they weren't this small. The X-E3 is where they went to this like really compact camera. So hopefully I'm using the or XH1, so hopefully the focus doesn't get lost. But you can see the size comparison between the X-T4 and X-E3. It's a lot smaller. Getting back to the point, they went to this small camera, and then the X-E4 is the same thing. They stripped down even more features. They got rid of this grip and various components like the switch and the command dial. I don't like what they did, as I mentioned, but I think there's an interest in that style of X-Pro3, but without some of these ridiculous features. So I think they could literally just take the X100V flip down LCD that's like more logical one, where it's normally visible like this, but then and it's kind of tucked in flush as it is in the V, but allow it to flip down. I think the X100V tilt out screen is a really good design. It's kind of out of the way, and I could kind of say the X-T4 is similar like this, where it's really flush and you really have to get your finger in here to pop it out. They did the same thing on the V, but the little indentations on the left side. So take that screen, take a body similar to the X-Pro3, which they could even do the Dura fanciness if they want, or just go back to skip the titanium and all the fancy finishes and just go back to magnesium like all the other Fujis. Just have that same rangefinder style at the bigger body, bigger than the X-E3 and 4, and put in the best EVF, so like the X-T4's EVF, put in the LCD from the X100V, which is a nice flip out and decent resolution. And ideally they could try to figure out a way to fit the what's it called, the S10's mini or smaller IBIS system in there too, but maybe that's just too much for that camera. But I think they could probably make that work, and maybe they'd have to stick with that older battery, or they could figure out a way to get these bigger batteries in there, because it's a pretty big camera. The X-Pro3, X-Pro2, X-Pro1, they're larger than a Leica M, and that's a full frame camera. It's kind of weird. That was what ended up making me get into Leica years ago with the ME, the old one. But I digress. I think that would really work. I think they could, I don't know what they would call it, maybe it would be the X-Pro4 and they get rid of hybrid, but I feel like Fuji can't handle that. So maybe they call it something else because they've already used up the XE line, which is unfortunate because that became a small body. But they need to just have a rangefinder style camera with some of their top specs, but with no stupid hybrid finder. That will cut the cost down and the simplicity, make it more simple. Just have the good EVF, which is what most people want. Have a good normal flip out LCD like the V. Don't bother with that stupid X-Pro3 hidden screen that like 2 people like. I think GX Ace and like one other person liked it. And you'd have a killer camera. And I know a lot of people who would be all over that because they wanted the X-Pro3, but the LCD killed it for them and they just couldn't get behind it. So fix the LCD, and while you're at it, get rid of the EVF, or the hybrid finder for an EVF only, which is what most people want. And I think whatever that's going to be, an X-Pro4, or I don't think it would be an X-E5 because I feel like the XE line is now again this compact line. But I don't know, they could go back, I guess. I don't know how well that camera's doing sales-wise because Fuji never has anything in stock, but either it's selling well or they just can't keep up production. But I think that could be the way Fuji could go. So yeah, keep the EVF, but of the higher resolution. Keep all the design philosophy basically of the X-Pro3, except the LCD. Go to the X100V LCD. Keep the rest the same. That would work. And the price should be less than the X-Pro3 because the hybrid finder is expensive. And I don't think there's a cost difference between the different types of flip screens. In fact, the V flip screen should be cheaper because it's just a single LCD panel, whereas the X-Pro3 has that little mini panel in the back, similar to the top panel on the XH1. So save money from getting rid of the hybrid finder and having a single LCD. And you have a camera that probably will sell better to more people. And you could even make it cheaper by skipping Dura coatings. I mean, I know some people like those, but just go back to regular paint. And I don't know if the titanium really makes a difference, honestly. I think people would be just as pleased with aluminum or magnesium, more common metals. But even the titanium, I think if you just painted it black, because the X-Pro3 black paint was the cheapest, I think you could get a lot of buyers. And considering all the chip shortages and this stuff, they could use that to kind of keep pushing the 26 megapixel. So basically the hardware that's in this X-T4, meaning the same LCD, the 3.69 EVF's nice. The LCD on this is obviously a different style, but the panel that's 1.68 or whatever million dots, really sharp. I like it. Obviously, these aren't the best specs out there, but they're both good. And then, like I said, it would be cool to have the IBIS, but I can see that being an issue, especially if you're trying to reuse that hardware. So if they're really trying to cut corners, they could change the tooling to not punch out that window in the front and then almost use some of the same stuff. And I think people would honestly buy it. And you could, drop the price at least by, what, $300, $400 easy by getting rid of some of that stuff. So imagine like a $14.99, which was actually the sale price of the X-T4, but the X-T4 has the bigger battery, comes with the newer battery, and it has IBIS. And it has maybe this articulation. I don't know if that costs more, but you can imagine, and that was on sale for $14.99 when I bought it. So I think they could literally make this X-Pro4/X-E5 for, and whatever they could sell it for $14.99, and I think still make money, and I think it would sell way better than the current X-Pro3s. I think Fuji should have done that, and I think there was a lot of cult following for the old XE1, XE2, XE2S, and they just need to modernize that. So that's kind of what I was thinking. I've been thinking about this for a bit and talking to some folks about it, but I think it would be a good seller. Maybe Billy, the Fuji guys, or some the Fuji managers they always talk about on the Fuji rumor site. Maybe one of them will catch this video, or maybe hopefully they've been thinking about this too if they want to sell something. But I sometimes wonder. But anyway, talk to you guys later.